just crazy enough to think they can change the world. A new era for community builders is here. Meet Disciple, the perfect community platform for your passion, people, and purpose. Display your unique brand on every device with your brand colors, your logo, and customizable layouts. Connect with others and share what you're most passionate about with posts, polls, live streams, events, videos, blogs, photos, and private folders to store your content. Power up engagement with private messaging, scheduled content, unlimited reach, push notifications, and unlimited groups. Create an income from doing what you love with paid for content and subscriptions. Your community is in safe hands with data privacy, zero algorithms, and data analytics. We'll support with your growth every step of the way through our customer community, The Collective. Get access to expert live streams, mentorship, community building resources, and connect with other community leaders. Get all these benefits and more with a Disciple-powered community platform. Because sometimes you have to create what you want to be a part of. Join our movement of leaders, experts, and change makers today. Disciple. We take your community as seriously as you do.
Hello everybody. Happy Thursday and welcome to another expert live stream here in The Collective by Disciple. Now, if you are seeing me and the two other people on this screen for the very first time and you haven't joined one of our events before, welcome in. Where have you been all this time? If you're coming back from a previous session that you've been to, thank you for coming back. I'm Valentina, Community Experience Lead at Disciple, and today I'm joined by Community Strategist Nicolette at Disciple, and we've also got a very special expert that is just below me on the screen, but I'll introduce her in a second. These live streams are all about helping you learn tips and tricks, giving you actionable strategies that once you leave this event, you can be like, right, this is what I'm now going to do almost straight away. So make sure you have a pen and paper around to take notes, because this particular live stream is a good one. Now, we all know that 2022, 2023, and potentially other years have been tough with building businesses and communities, especially around money and the economics of everything. And when I saw this particular person do their event live stream a few months ago, I thought we need to get her here to do this, because some of the things that she's going to share today are just going to be light bulb moments for you. And some of them will be like, why didn't I think of that before? So, Carrie, thank you so much for joining us today. We've had you in the collective many times now, and we just keep asking you to come back because we just love all your insights. We are so excited for you today to share how our members and other people that are watching can help plan their community business goals during tough economic times. And today we're actually doing a very special giveaway. So if you are watching this live and you have a burning question, pop it in the chat, because one person is going to be winning a spot on Carrie's Brand Foundations course and get one of those books of Building Brand Communities, which is a great book. So a really great giveaway. So get thinking of those questions throughout, pop them in the chat, and we'll have Q&A at the very end after Carrie has done her session. I'm going to stop talking because, Carrie, I know you've got a lot of content to share, so I'm going to pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to be here. The Disciple community is like such a passionate group of people. It's amazing to see and have conversations with all of you. So so we're going to be talking today about planning your business goals specifically. So I often don't talk about business revenue, things like that. I talk about community engagement and like how to spark activity, and all of that is important. It's so important. But today we're going to talk about the numbers. So I know that's also very, very important for many of us. So are we ready for me to share my slides? I'll take it away from here. All right. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about planning your business goals during tough economic times. So I don't need to share the entire state of the world right now, but obviously the global economy is in a state of flux. For some people right now, things are going really, really well, really wonderfully. And for what feels like the majority of us, things feel really hard economically. Inflation is still rising in many places in the world. Consumer spending is down. There's just a lot of uncertainty, and the media is obviously perpetuating a lot of this. So it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. But what we need to understand as business owners is, how does this impact those of us who gather people, and especially those of us who do it either as our full livelihoods or, a part-time or a side gig kind of thing? How can we continue to grow even during this time? There's always opportunity, no matter what the economy is doing. So if you're in the chat, I would love to know what community that you are building and where you're located. I always just like to know who's here and where your perspective is coming from, both from a community perspective as well as regionally. So you can let us know that throughout the discussion. You don't have to type it right now, but if you are around, let us know and I will shout you out. So as Valentina mentioned, I'm Carrie Melissa Jones. I'm a community builder. I'm also an entrepreneur, a fellow entrepreneur, the author of Building Brand Communities. I do research, just finished my master's degree, and have advised a number of companies. So the ones that you're seeing here are our big enterprise clients, but we've also worked with a number of small businesses and bring the same kind of knowledge, the same kind of expertise to all of these organizations, because community building, the principles are the same. How we apply them is different within our contexts. So for today, feel free to ask me any questions throughout the sections of this workshop. I have the Disciple Collective app open so I can see your chats and messages. And then I'll take breaks throughout. If there are questions, I will take breaks. So don't feel like you have to hold on till the very end. And if you're in the chat, talk to each other. This isn't just my expertise. Of course, I have my own expertise, but I want you all to be getting to know each other and acknowledging each other's expertise as well. So share what resonates, +1 other people's comments, things like that. All right. So in 2023, I know that for those of us who gather people for a living, we want to meet our members where they are today, and we want to offer something that they truly need. We always want that. In 2022, we wanted that in 2021, 2020. But what they truly need is shifting because of all of these different global forces that are going on. So we need to understand what that is, and then we want to meet our members where they're at. You probably also want to meaningfully improve the lives of those that you serve. You're not just running a community because you have a bunch of extra time on your hands and you want to, start a community around like yo-yos or something. Although if that's what you do, then amazing. But even if that is what you do, you can be meaningfully improving the lives of those you serve by connecting other yo-yo lovers or other people who are really invested in whatever topic or passion or purpose that your community is about. And just connecting people alone meaningfully improves their lives, because disconnection is rampant in our world today. And absolutely, in 2023, you deserve to support yourself financially with this work, because you are doing labor by creating these connections, by hosting communities, by thinking of ways to engage people, by like hosting events, activities, all of this stuff. It is labor, and that you deserve to be supported for. And this is something that I work with community builders a lot, and there's a lot of hangups and false beliefs about whether they should be making money from this or not. So I just want to make very, very clear that you are doing work. You deserve to be supported financially, and you're providing a lot of value. And actually, people want to support you financially for all of the value that you provide. So what you're going to be learning today is essentially a way to get some clarity amid all of this overwhelm that you might be experiencing this year. So you're going to learn how to clarify your community business model, and then based on that business model to then calculate some realistic metrics for, especially for growth and for revenue for your business. So wherever you're at today, maybe you're actually feeling really good, but we're going to be able to get you to further clarity today so that you can set achievable goals and feel more resilient for your community this year. So we're going to start out first by articulating how a community fits into your business model. So that's where we will begin today. Then we will identify and reconcile any kind of expectations that you have for your community, for growth, for engagement, for the time that you plan to spend in there, so that we can get really realistic about what are your operational costs of running your community. And then finally, we will then take those two things and then set your goals and create a plan for continuing to grow during this time. So before we jump right into the teaching content, I just want to give you some context for how the last year led me to create this workshop. And as Valentina said, I delivered this earlier this spring, and there was just so much going on, and there's so much that's making this time truly unique. And so we need to think about, what is this unique time calling for right now from us as leaders? So obviously about a year ago, actually a little bit now over a year ago, this is from February 25th, 2022. So last February, what was going on in the news is that Putin had invaded Ukraine. And so when this happened, these were some of the headlines that we were seeing around that time. The economy was jolting. It was like doing all kinds of wild things. Then it came to a standstill. And for us as a business, we noticed that our regular leads weren't coming in. People were actually just holding off on spending money. And they've been doing that again this year. I think from the start of January through, really it's still happening now. People are just holding off on spending money. They're afraid. And so when I get really nervous, what I do is I get really quiet and I listen and I go to research. I'm like, what is the evidence that I need in order to make a plan to go from here? So in this case, what we decided to do starting last February is initiating research on how to pivot our business. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing a little bit of context with you on today. At the same time, we're all aware that social media is, if not dying, certainly dampening in its overall ability to meet our connection needs. Now, it's obviously Facebook's still hanging out there, Meta, whatever they're calling it these days. Twitter is still, a place where there are millions of people, but people are shifting away from social media into community spaces. Community is a huge thing right now. People are getting, and especially business owners, I've seen multiple of them this year who I'm close with get locked out of things like their Facebook accounts, so they can't actually run their business effectively. From no fault of their own, just because of glitches or someone hacking their account. Twitter, which once was like this booming social media application, has really just, its influence has died down in a matter of, I think now it's been almost like 200 days since Elon Musk has been CEO. There's a new CEO coming in. We'll see what happens next. But this is why community businesses can be especially resilient in this current environment, because people are looking for trusted spaces away from the noise, away from the mess. And so this is a major opportunity for us to take this call and offer these spaces for people to gather. Now, this is last year looking at our own numbers. This was our business income, expenses, and profit from 2022. And as you can see, things were ramping up in March. And then, as I mentioned, in the spring, things just dropped off. And for a bootstrapped service-based business, which is what I run, this is not good. It's not sustainable. If your profit is, going into the negative, you cannot continue the business for very long. Now, luckily, the changes that we instituted because of the research that we conducted and the changes that we made to our programs and our offerings made it so actually the end of 2022 made up for all of those losses. It actually ended up being our best financial year ever. But my point here is what you're seeing is expenses actually, we didn't change them. And so what a lot of people are doing right now is they're cutting expenses thinking that's the solution. I need to fire people. I need to, pay myself less. I need to cut all software expenses. But actually, expansion is still possible right now. So you don't have to just go through and cut everything. In fact, that's going to put you in a place of fight or flight in many cases. So instead, we need to think of creative ways to grow and expand. So how we got here was we started off a research project. This was our team, Ashley, Wiley, and Kelly. We started to talk to people that were part of our community and people we wanted to be part of our community. And our initial hypothesis going into this was actually that we needed to pivot from who we were serving, who were mostly individual community managers, into serving entire corporate teams. But what we actually quickly learned by talking to the people and going through and doing these interviews is that founders and entrepreneurs were the ones who were so urgently needing what we provided. So in our interviews, we heard a great need for founders who build community, much like yourselves, right now to provide stability and some sense of consistency and frameworks and structure in a time of disarray and chaos. And that's what we started to build at the time. We also heard that a lot of founders were scared and holding off on efforts, feeling jaded, or waiting for the right time to do things. So right now, community businesses, just like the communities that they serve, they need support in the form of role models, templates, examples, friendship, and a place to not feel isolated, support through pivots. And the people that you support with your communities want these exact same things. So we've got to figure out how to do what we can with what we have today. Because again, whoever it is that you are gathering, whether it be a hobby community, a professional community, people are still looking for role models. They're still looking for structures to navigate uncertainty. They're still looking for friendship. They're still looking for support. And so we can provide all those things as community businesses. And as a creator, a coach, a founder, however you identify, you have a passion for gathering your people. But what's really frustrating is that oftentimes the numbers don't quite make sense, or you're barely breaking even with your community business, or maybe you've plateaued this year and you're just feeling like it's you. It's not the economy. It's not all of this. It's you. I assure you that it's not just you. This work is ever evolving, and it's best to do this work alongside others. So I'm glad that you're here in the collective, that you're watching this right now so that you know that you are not alone. So we want to bring fun, joy, and service back into the heart of what you do, because I know a lot of founders right now are feeling really blah and meh about what they're doing. I've seen a lot of communities shut down unnecessarily so when they really are more needed now than ever before. So if you're here right now, it's because you care and it really, really matters. So we can figure this out together. So let's do it. All right. So where are we going to start today? We're going to start, as I said, by articulating how community fits into your business model. So first, we need to define what community means before we crunch it down into this really rigid business context. This is not remedial information. It is hard to talk about what we do and the value of what we do. People often think that community is this fluffy concept, something people are not willing to pay for, all these things. So for business owners especially, it's important because defining community is actually countercultural to what the business world expects. And it's very easy to lose sight of what a community really is versus, this is a place where people pay to be members and we give them things. And it's a cost benefit analysis that we need to run. So a community, when I'm talking about it, this is my very structured definition. It is simply a group of people who share mutual concern for one another's welfare. Now, this definition started out through my co-author Charles Vogel's work in the book, The Art of Community. And what I love about it is that it is all encompassing. It's broad, but at the heart of all of it is mutual concern for one another's welfare. And that is what is typically missing in this world and what is typically missing in communities that people build, membership communities, especially ones that are monetized. What makes communities truly special and indispensable in people's lives is that mutual concern that they're not finding anywhere else. That's what helps people to want to stick around, pay for membership, tell their friends about it. And so if you think about a community that you've joined, but then never participated in, maybe you filled out the login or the sign up experience, and then you just never log back in again, it's likely because you felt like you didn't connect with anyone in the community, or that your presence really didn't matter, or that nothing in the community was actually speaking to your needs and there was not an avenue for you to find other people there who could step up next to you at that time. So this is something that we have to keep in mind, because all growth is going to come from understanding that this is what we're trying to craft and create as community builders. Okay. So when we're talking about community, let's get really specific about what it is we're talking about here. Fortunately, I know that this group of people gets this. There's plenty of people that don't. But I want to give some examples of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about community, especially for business owners. So a community can be something like a Discord server run on a subscription basis. It can be a Facebook group for your course students. It can be a weekly gathering of mastermind clients. It could be your disciple community that your patrons get access to, or however you think about conceiving of who your members are. So what we're not talking about here are things like audience building. So Instagram, direct messages. Yes, they are a tool. Yes, they are a way of building relationships and maintaining them, but that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about building communities. We're not talking about Instagram comments. We're not talking about your Facebook page or your email list. These are all important tools, as I said, but that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about community. And why does getting the definition of this matter so much? Why am I spending so much time on this? Because again, it is countercultural to what many in the business world expect. And it's very easy to lose sight of. And so today we're going to be playing with numbers. And what I want you to keep in mind is that the numbers and the goal setting, even the revenue that you generate, that's not what's going to create a sustainable community business. Only mutual concern is going to do that for you. So during tough times, it's more important than ever to have your customers feel engaged with you, but also loyalty, having close customers, those who are going to be retained over time. And I can tell you, having worked with many big businesses, they are sweating this right now because customers are churning. There's no loyalty left. It's people are doing this cost benefit analysis, and they're looking for the cheaper option in many cases. But for a community business, that loyalty is truly, 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 truly indispensable. And you don't need a huge audience to build a sustainable business. What can be inspiring is just how far some folks are willing to go if they feel a part of something. So, you don't need 10,000 true fans. You don't even necessarily need 1,000 true fans. You need the right pricing structure and the right business model together. And then you can have a community of 10 people and still have a sustainable business. It just really depends on your setup. All right, so now let's define it within our business terms. So let's articulate your community business model. So the key question that we have to answer here is, how does your business primarily make money? And there are 3 ways I've identified that community businesses make money. So the first one is recurring membership subscriptions. So that's you might have a monthly or a quarterly or annual community membership subscription fee, and people pay to be a part of that. And that is the main thing that you offer as a business, or could be one of your offerings. So there are many examples of this. There's a community called Membership Geeks. I think you pay annually for that one. Dreamers and Doers, which is a community for female entrepreneurs. That one you can pay quarterly or annually for. There's many businesses like this. And this is likely, if you're here today from Disciple, this is probably where you are, where you're sitting. But you also could be running digital programs. So either evergreen programs that are open all year long, or cohort-based programs where you open it up a couple times a year with a community component. So a lot of times these folks don't see themselves necessarily as community builders. They see themselves as course creators or coaches. And community is sort of one of the benefits that people get as part of the program. They don't often realize that community is actually one of the main benefits, and that if they spent a little bit more time and effort on this, that the value of their offerings would skyrocket. But a lot of course creators, like Mariah Cause is one example. You join her programs. She's I think she teaches people how to sell courses for entrepreneurs. When you join her programs, you join her Facebook group, or is it Slack? She's been on Mighty Network. She's been all over the place. Okay. She's been on a bunch of places. So that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the program, but you're getting community as a component of it. So that could be where you're sitting. And then though this is unlikely to be you, this is many community-centric businesses where you're selling products and services and there's a community component to them. So one example is Modern Fertility, which is owned by a company called Roe now. It sells like fertility tracking products for people with uteruses, and people pay for the fertility tracking products, but the community is free. And so that's again, an important, huge actually value add for customers is the community. And so when you're thinking about planning out your revenue, planning out marketing for these things, it's really important to be playing up these elements of community within the marketing materials that you're putting together and within your sales pages and things like that. So I'm curious which business model best describes your work today. Are you running a recurring membership subscription business? Are you selling digital programs, or are you selling products and services with a community component to them? So let me know which one fits your use case best, and we can tailor this as we get into the goal setting, because all of this is going to affect the goals that you set, obviously. We'll see how it does that in just a moment. I'm going to grab some water. All right. All right. So why is it important to articulate your business model? So number one, so we can get clarity on how to plan for our revenue, because we need to understand how community experiences are impacting key outcomes like retention, churn, pricing, conversion, things like that. And we also need to understand it because community may or may not be the only contributor to why people are renewing or paying in the first place for your product and service. So understanding where it fits into the business can help you better forecast for what's happening during these uncertain times, and even to amplify it as a value proposition right now. So next from here, once that's articulated, we need to then be able to identify and reconcile our expectations against reality. Again, I work with many, many community builders and creators who never intended to build community, but started to do it because they realized it was necessary and a huge piece of what people were wanting with their products and services. And so they have some unrealistic expectations about what their community should look like. And I hope that this section is really, really reassuring for you, especially during a time where things are a little wonky. So I like to say expectation is the root of all heartache. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's very, very true. I'd add that expectation is not just the root of all heartache, but the root of feeling uninspired, stuck, hopeless, confused, overwhelmed. So we've got to get our expectations in line with reality. So setting realistic expectations for your community is going to help you to sustain your community in the long run. So many communities fail, or I should say they shut down or lose funding due to a big, big gap between what we had expected and the actual performance. And so we need to be able to be really clear on what success really does look like. So some questions I invite you to ask yourself, because I don't want to assume anything about your expectations, but it's good for you to articulate for yourself what expectations that you might have never even said out loud that you have about your community's growth. So we're just going to start with growth. We're going to talk about time commitment and engagement as well. So questions for you. How many members do you think should be joining your community per month? Have you ever thought about this before? Or do you just kind of have this idea in your head of, I'll know a good number when I see it? Or how do you think you should be growing your audience and community? There is a constant misconception in this work that there's going to be like one magic marketing or sales tactic that's going to resolve all the need to experiment and send out messages via our email list and all that. And you'll never need to lift a finger again. You'll be able to automate everything. Unfortunately, this is not true. And we'll talk about what is true in just a moment. Next, what expectations do you have around your time commitment and your members' time commitment to the community? So how much time do you think you should be spending, or are you spending on your community per week versus what you had expected to spend? How many days per week are you expecting to have to check in? And how much time do you expect your members to be in your community? I hear a vast spectrum of expectations here. I hear everything from one side, people think that a community is self-managing. So if you throw together like a Discord or a Slack server, or if you create your Disciple app, that you can then just step away and it'll just take care of itself. And they shouldn't even have to be there to manage it. I hear that all the time. But on the other side of the spectrum, I hear a lot of folks think that they have to be on call 24 hours a day. And that if they're not doing that, that they are failing their members. And if they're not responding to things right away, they are failing their members. And then more so, they're expecting that their members are also going to be active 24 hours a day. There won't be any seasonality to the community, which is just not true. So really check your expectations here. What kind of time do you think you and your members should be spending? And just write them down without judgment. And then finally, engagement. So what are you expecting engagement to look like inside of your community? What portion of your members do you think should post questions or create threads? What would thriving engagement look like to you? I ask this here because many people think that most people participating in the community, or like a 90 to 100% engagement rate, is success, and that they should have this filled up content calendar with like 3 posts per day, or even just 1 a day, with tons of things going on in the community, and that their members should eventually be doing all the posting and they'll never have to do anything in the community again. Or they might also think that engagement, or what thriving engagement looks like, is a feeling, and they'll know that when they experience it. What I can tell you is that that never happens. It's never enough. There's a constant feeling if you don't articulate what thriving engagement looks like. There's a constant feeling of, I could be doing more, if you don't set clear expectations and have a realistic idea of what engagement should look like. So we're going to talk about what those are in just a moment. So first, let's talk about the reality of growth. So the growth rate of your community is directly proportional to the size of your existing audience. So larger audience here, meaning like your email list, your social media following, other places where people are kind of more interacting with your content versus interacting with each other. So it is directly proportional to that, plus your consistency in communicating with them. So if you have a 1.5 million member email list, amazing, but you never email them, then the growth rate of your community is going to be static. It's going to be slow, versus consistency in emailing them will help to improve that growth rate. So what is this proportion? We have to understand what that is. We're going to do a worksheet and talk about that in just a moment. Typical conversion rates to paid memberships. And this is what I've seen across many, many different types of communities. But these are just typical conversion rates that I've seen. Yours might be different, but I see a 2 to 5% conversion on email lists. And that means not because you sent one email. It means because you're consistently emailing your list about your community or your paid membership offering. And then I see a less than 0.5% conversion on social media. Again, check your own statistics here. Look at your email list and then look at what portion of that email list is paying to be on your membership. That's going to help you to plan out your growth for the year. So it's actually quite a small portion. And we need to keep that in mind because our audience has to be much, much larger than what we plan for the paid membership to be. We have to constantly be thinking about audience growth in addition to community growth. So what this means, what it translates to, is that if you want 100 members in your paid community, you would need between 2,000 and 5,000 email subscribers, or you'd need to up your conversion rates on those on a smaller email list, or you need to adjust your expectations or change your pricing. But you can use these conversion rates to think about, okay, how much marketing and effort do I really need to be putting into growth at this time? Now, the other reality of growth is that excellent community experience is what creates growth. Not just you constantly talking about how amazing your community is, but actually these things that happen more organically as a result of you creating an incredible community experience inside of your paid membership program. So community experience begets growth through things like testimonials and case studies that you publish. I can tell you that in my membership program, So many of our future members come from current members who share with others the difference the membership has made in their lives. So this is all word of mouth and it's not trackable. I really wish it was, but it's not. And usually I'll find out through the grapevine, or they'll mention something eventually and I'll find out like, oh, like Caitlin is the reason why you're here. That's amazing. It also is going to come from your own confidence in your program. And yes, of course, the more you improve the community experience, the more that you improve the value that you're providing, the more likely you are going to be able to confidently raise your prices, which means that you can grow not by growing your community any larger, but by instead keeping it the same size and charging more because you can, because the value that you're offering is then in equal balance with the cost of the community. All right, so these are the realities of growth. Now, the realities of our time, which time is money, right? The reality is that you can actually manage a community in just a few hours per week if, big if you have the structures in place to do so. So I've been doing this work for a really long time, and I have a lot of structures in place for my work. I have automation set up. I have a content calendar. I have templates. I have strongly engaged members who I work with, actually, and some of them are volunteers in the community. And I only spend about 2 to 3 hours in my community per week. So it's like, I almost think about it as it's one offering that we have within our product suite, essentially, in our offering as a business. And it's something that I don't spend the majority of my time doing, but it has outsized impact on everything else that I do because I've got the structures in place. The thing is that we're not trying to build Facebook, and we're not trying to addict people to our memberships. Your community members are busy and are likely only going to be checking in a few times per week at most. Make that okay. Make that totally fine. Because the other thing is, yeah, you're only spending 2 to 3 hours in your community per week and you're running it. Your members should be spending hopefully even less time in there. And that's really surprising to a lot of people because they think a successful community is one in which like people have it open all day long and they're constantly, like in Slack, for example, they're constantly posting in there. But actually that's really distracting and after a while fatiguing. And that's why you see really high churn in places like Slack communities. The other reality of time here is that you should be spending most of your community management time, role modeling, holding space, and recognizing others, not creating content from scratch, not spending all this time looking at analytics dashboards, but actually just simply thanking people for what they're doing, holding space in events and things like that, participating in threads that other people are posting, things like that. So if you spend your time doing that, it creates more leaders in the community, actually. All right, and then let's talk about engagement. So there's a really important principle called the 80-20 principle. This is something that is true across the board, like that 20% of our inputs contribute to 80% of our outputs. This is also true in communities. Again, I've worked with communities of all sizes, and typically speaking, 20% of our members are contributing 80% of the value for everyone else. Inside of a community, then, 20% of that 20%, so that's 4% of our members, are indispensable pieces of the puzzle. So what success looks like in terms of engagement is actually only between 4 and 20% of your members participating. So that's really reassuring to a lot of people because you don't have to get to 100. If you're between 4 and 20, you're actually in a really healthy place. If you're above that, you're doing incredible work. You should be extremely proud of yourself. Okay. And it takes a while to get here too. You're not going to get here on day one. I usually see communities hit this stride and be really stable around 18 months. So it does take some time. But if you prioritize connection, safety, and progress, engagement is a natural byproduct of these things. So instead of putting so much emphasis on just creating more, put the emphasis on creating these things instead. All right, so just to summarize this really quick. So community growth is proportional to audience size and your consistency in communication, and the experience is what begets growth. Time commitment, with the right support and boundaries, you can manage your community in just a few hours per week. And engagement, 20% of your members are going to be contributing 80% of the community's value. And that is a healthy number right there. So that's what you should be aiming for. So I'm curious, let me know in the chat if this resonates with your experience, if this is anything surprising to you, if you would dispute any of these realistic expectations. I'm all ears for any other different experiences. But again, what I want you to understand here is that these are the realistic expectations for these things. Instead of having these unrealistic expectations, you can have these more realistic ones. They're going to help you step into more ease as you start planning your community goals. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to be talking about setting your goals and creating a plan. So we're going to talk revenue. Yes, we're going to talk those numbers. Yes, we're going to be playing with numbers, but they are also, I find them to be, in most community builders I talk to, I find them to be deeply uninspiring, but they're what create a sustainable business model for you. But again, remember, these are just numbers. And the only thing that is going to really help you to build this community that you're building over the long term is crafting that mutual concern, that connection, that feeling of safety, feeling of recognition, all these things. So if you are here right now, I'll just walk through this worksheet with you. There's also a link to it I can share with you afterwards. It's a 2-page worksheet, and it just walks you through how to set these goals. So what it does is it is going to walk you through, your membership. Is it evergreen or cohort based? What is your revenue goal? What's possible now if you, given your current circumstances, then what could be possible? And this is where we get into planning your goals during uncertain times. Okay. But we start out with, it is a little bit chicken and egg, but we start out with, what is your desired revenue for 2023? So here you would put in your revenue goal. I know this can be a hard question to answer without further context. You could look back at previous years if you want to be growing from last year. You can look back at, actually, what I want to say is I want you to be thinking big here, but don't get too caught up in this. We're going to get there. So again, because it's chicken and egg, we've got to start somewhere. So if you're struggling to set a number, like set 100,000 or something like that, so that you can just compare what your expectation is to what's possible given your current situation. But some questions to help you answer this larger question of what your revenue goal is what number feels like a stretch to you? Because this number should feel a little scary. It's okay. What would help you to reach your financial goals, personally speaking? I say that it's okay that it's scary because it's not about the number itself. I have a mentor of mine who says it's actually, goal setting is about who you become on the pathway to pursuing that goal. So if $100,000 from your membership community feels like a massive stretch to you, good. Then you can think about, well, who would I need to be if I really wanted to make that much money at this? Who would I need to be, and what would need to change about the way that I run my business to get there? Because if you really do want to reach that goal, you're going to have to make those changes, and that's going to become readily apparent to you quite quickly. Okay. So again, not about the number itself, but that can help you to set that initial, what your revenue goal is for the rest of 2023. Now we're going to look at what's possible today. So how close could you get to that revenue number? So we're going to look at a couple of inputs. First is your current program pricing. Second is your current email subscriber list number. Third is your current social following, and that is across different platforms. And then that's going to help us to create a revenue estimate for what's possible given our audience today. Because again, growth is directly proportional to that current audience. Okay. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So here's how this would work. So what you're going to do is take the numbers that are accurate for you. Say you have 1,000 current email subscribers and 500 social subscribers across, or social followers across, like LinkedIn and Instagram. Okay. So you're going to take that and you're going to multiply those numbers by the typical conversion rates. And I have this set on the lower one, the 2% here. So 1,000 times 0.02 and then 0.005 for that 0.5% conversion from social followings. Okay. So what that's going to give you, what that's going to show you is that you have about 20 potential members from your current email subscribers and about 2 to 3 only from the 500 that you have on social. And again, that is just a realistic estimate. so that you understand how many potential members you could have. Then you're going to take those numbers and you're going to multiply them by your current program price. So say it's $100. What we're going to then see is that if that's $100 per year, then you're only looking at making $2,200 per year. If it's per month, then you're looking at $2,200 per month here. So that's maybe more in line with what you'd like to see. So that's going to help you to see, okay, is this, am I actually hitting this right now? Am I hitting this goal? Could I be upping my conversion rates on my email subscriber list? Could I be doing more there? And we're going to talk about growth and or tactics for growth in just a moment. And then what you're going to do is skip down to the bottom to run numbers on what kind of engagement to aim for in your current reality. So look at the number of members in your community, times it by that 20%, and see the estimated active members in your community. So that's going to tell you, is it realistic to expect 1,000 people to be active here? Or should I really be looking more at like 10 people are going to be super active in my community that's smaller? Then what we're going to look at is what could be possible. And this is where we get into goal setting for this year. So there are 3 different ways to grow in 2023. You can either increase your conversion rates, and you do that by communicating more consistently with your audience, or you can retain your members more effectively by improving their experience, making sure that you're surveying them when they do churn from the community so that you can learn what you can do better. Or we can increase our audience essentially by increasing our email subscribers or social followers. And we do that by investing in more marketing or more consistent marketing in our communities. But of course, a lot of us are very tired in 2023. So doing these things might feel a little overwhelming for you. So we especially need to be considering this right now. What we have energy for, what is already working in our community, and where there might be low-hanging fruit. So is there something that we can do that is not going to take tons and tons and tons of our energy and deplete us to do it? So when we're talking about what this might look like, it can be about increasing conversions. Like I said, this can be instead of doing your typical 1 to 2 emails per launch, creating entire launch campaigns. So when we run a launch, we actually do about 15 emails per launch. It's a lot of it's a lot of planning, but it's way more effective than us, doing 20 different social media posts or things like that, because email conversions are much, much higher. Tactic 2 would be reviewing your past communications effectiveness and looking at the conversion rates on these things. So emails, ads, social media, what has worked for you so far? If you haven't looked at these things, now is the time to go back and take stock at historically what has been working for you so that you can take that and use the low-hanging fruit there to really amplify what you're doing. So review what has already worked for you and amplify that. Now, if you want to focus on retaining members, there's a couple things to be focusing on. Number 1 is optimizing your onboarding process. This is usually an area of extremely low-hanging fruit. Onboarding is crucial to the future community experience and the likelihood that someone will actually be actively participating in your community in the future. So if your onboarding doesn't feel quite right, focus on that right now. Second, you can be experimenting with overall program attributes and thinking about ways that you can amplify the value that's already there for your members. And third, you can revisit your renewal process. Again, another huge area of low-hanging fruit. A lot of times we're not even asking people to renew. We're just like, their membership is lapsing and then we let them go. So what is a way that we can institute a campaign, especially an automated campaign, to remind people that their membership is about to expire, that they can renew for another year, another month, whatever that might be, and get that revenue that we would otherwise be losing. We actually just implemented this for our own company in the last week. So it's pretty exciting. It's taken us until June to get it done. Or you can focus on growing your audience. So there's a lot of tactics here, and sometimes the ones that work for you in the past are not working right now. So again, reviewing what's working and what has worked for you in the past is important, and then experimenting with it. So workshops or webinars, for a lot of people, they're not working the way they did in the past. I still find them to be extremely effective, but that's not true for everyone. You can produce things like a podcast or a podcast series. I actually just met an entrepreneur yesterday who literally offers you create a 10 podcast series, and she's able to optimize that and help generate leads just from that podcast series. So there's a whole area there that you can invest in. Also, building up relationships with affiliates and partners. Again, that word of mouth is really, really important. And growing your audience might look like reaching out and tapping into audiences from others, actually. And then finally, or not finally, there's a couple more here, virtual or in-person events. In-person events are coming back with a vengeance, doing challenges, doing direct outreach. And then we've got paid media or earned media. So either ads or public relations. Okay. So if we go back to our revenue goal, we now want to look at how far away we were when we did that, what's possible today, and then look at, okay, if we were to actually amplify this and set some really ambitious goals for the rest of 2023, could we get closer to this number? So now I invite you to the second part of that worksheet, which is what could be possible. So what could be possible if you grew your audience and retained those 20% of your active members? So here are the numbers that you're going to be playing around with are like, what if we grew our email list from 100 to 1,000 subscribers? What if we experimented with ads? And this is a blank because everyone's ad conversion rate is different. I like to put in like 1% here, just really, really low when I'm playing with it. So if we were to invest a couple $100 into ads just to test them, what could we expect there? If we were to grow our social following, what would happen there? And then retaining that 20% at least of our membership, then how many members would we be talking about? Then once you have that number of members, then multiplying it by the price of the program. And again, here, do you need to raise the price of the program this year? In some cases, it makes sense to raise it. Sometimes it makes sense to lower it. Be very, very careful with that one. Talk to me if that's something you're thinking about doing. It's really it's something you need to be very careful about. But that's going to then lead you to what could be possible if you were to set these more ambitious goals. So what I invite you to do here is throw numbers around and play with them. They're not precious. This is just a worksheet. And as you play around with those numbers, be asking yourself what gets you to that ideal revenue number, or what needs to change as a result. Do you need to bring on extra help? Do you need to invest more in automation software, artificial intelligence, other tools that are going to help you to do your job better? So the questions that I want to leave you with is, what will you prioritize from here? What do you have capacity for? And what do you want to experiment with? Because that's going to lead you to a plan that's going to help you to feel more confident as you step into the rest of 2023. It is not too late. I don't even think we're halfway through the year quite yet. You've got time to make a change in your business. So just to recap really quickly, and then we'll go to any questions that might be in the chat or other areas. There's 3 steps that we talked about to building clarity right now. One is articulating how community fits into your business model. So subscriptions, digital program sales, or if you have a product or service-based business with a free community component. 2 is identifying those expectations and reconciling them with reality. And then finally, from there, you can set your goals and create a plan for, do I want to focus on increasing retention? Do I want to focus on growing my audience? Do I want to focus on improving the experience inside of the community, improving conversions? What are we actually going to do from here? What is the plan that we're going to run with? So today you learned how to set goals for your community and revenue growth for the rest of 2023. You learned why expectations about community building might actually be holding you back from stepping into the next level of growth. If you're not feeling confident right now in your community, then marketing it can feel just like, I can't possibly market this thing because it's not good enough yet. And I can almost guarantee you that it's much better than you think that it is today. So don't let that hold you back. And you also saw that revenue and growth are actually byproducts of an intentional experience in the crafting of that mutual concern in your community. And so as I finish up today, I just want to reassure you that you can run a community business in integrity with your values and simultaneously support yourself financially. I see it all the time. And it is possible to do this. It's about amping up what's working and letting go of what's not. So what has worked in the past might not work now. So you've got this. You've got this process, and we've got you to support you through this journey. You're definitely not alone. I know you've got the collective community. You can always reach out to me with any questions that you have. I'm happy to answer those or cheer you on, whatever it is that you need. And from here, we'll go to Q&A and answer any questions that people have about goal setting and things like that. So I will stop sharing my screen now.
Hey, Carrie, that was incredible. Super, super informative. I feel like I was sitting here going, okay, one more thing. Okay, what about that? All right, let me just take a screenshot of this now. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights with us. We've got a few questions that have come in from the chat, so I'm going to get through them now. We've only got 5 minutes, so let's see what we can get to. We've got one from Rod who said, the concern for the welfare of other members. Man, I love that. I love that he said that. From a community manager's standpoint, what have you seen that really fosters that level of connection or that level of concern for others?
It's got to start from the leader first. So if you don't care about your community members' welfare, nobody else is going to care either. It's all about role modeling. That's really where it originates, but also the structures that you put in place, like during onboarding and things like that. So for example, so many communities are it feels like this just exercise in like a checklist of things you need to do when you sign up for the community. So it's like, introduce yourself on our introduction thread, and then somebody will be like emoji response to it. And it just doesn't feel like it really matters.
Authentic.
Yeah. Whereas like what we do for introductions in our community is like, there's a series of questions to answer. I make sure that I always respond to those introduction threads. No, it's not scalable, but yes, I get to know each of our members and get to know like where they're from. I always ask a fun question, like, what was the last really great meal that you had? So I get like, it's amazing because you're like, what do they eat in Brazil? And what do they eat in like Indonesia? And I see all these anyway, it's fascinating. And that's what is really necessary, is like caring about the individual. And then that you start to establish that culture.
Yeah, absolutely agreed with you. I think that we really underestimate what it means to have a level of authenticity and like that, having that genuine connection with another individual as well. So it's all great and well saying, hi, who are you? And then getting back to it with a thumbs up, where it's actually like, let's spend time, let's get to know each other. And I often say that, especially when you're launching a community, like do what you can to pre-schedule things in. It's kind of what you've said, like work with your automations, pre-schedule content, etc. So you can spend the rest of your time being in the actual community, getting to know your members, connecting them with one another, and ideally getting them to that next space that you kind of want them to be in inside the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Automate the stuff that's just rote and ritual. Yeah,
exactly. Great, thank you. Another question. So believe that community can come before a business idea, or should the business idea come first and the community be an add-on? Which way do you believe will be a stronger financial method or model?
Yeah, absolutely. The community can come before a business idea. And there's not like a should. It can come either way. What I often see in the most successful communities at launch is that there is at least some strong audience already built in place so that you can launch to an audience versus trying to build something up from zero. It's not that that's impossible. Definitely seen it done and supported people to get that done. But it's a lot harder to do that. So in terms of like a stronger financial method, I would say like business and audience building first and then the community. That doesn't mean that you can't create a strong financial method or model if you've started a community and then it's kind of taken organic shape, and then you go back and say, okay, what are we going to build from here? That is a more delicate scenario though, because typically those communities are free and then you're adding on monetization. So it has its own challenges to it, but not impossible.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got another question. So this one says, I came in right when you were talking about the realistic expectations of engagement. In general, not necessarily mathematical, how do you expect engagement to happen in brand new communities? Chunky one.
Yeah. So that one, it has to, so there's a number of things to think about. I have a client that just launched and they're running into this right now. They're over indexing on like the community management team posting things They're spending too much time with just the community manager being the one writing things. And so especially when new members log in, they're like, who is this Jessica person? I don't know who this is, and I don't want to only hear from this person.
Right.
So it's really, really important that the engagement at that point is some of the community management team or the community manager. And then there's things happening on the back end. And this is why our strategy when we work with clients is typically to put together like a founding member group of people who have raised their hands and said, I'm willing to post things. I'm willing to start conversations. I'm willing to be like a point person. So that's something that people would never see. But on the back end, you have like an email list, or, you know, maybe they're in your Slack if you have a team Slack or something, and you're saying like, hey, Rosie, can you post that really great question you asked during our call last week or something in the community? And then it's creating more dynamic engagement. But that's what is necessary in the early days, and it becomes less necessary over time. But that's what's so important in the early days.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I remember even when I launched the collective, it was just me for a little bit. I was like, they must be sick of this. I'm saying all these things, but I'm like, I need to fix this up. Like, let's get the team involved. Let's actually start thinking about how everyone else can kind of contribute, share their thoughts and opinions. And again, that leads really nicely into that level of authenticity, where it's not just me just saying it because I have to, but because people have genuine things they actually want to talk about and share.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gets easier. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah.
In the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great. Well, that is our time, unfortunately. We ran through this so quickly. And for those who do still have questions, please, it was great. No problems there. But those that do still have questions, please feel free to put them inside the collective or wherever you're dialing in from. And someone from the Disciple team will definitely jump in and kind of help out and support how we definitely can. But yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's attended. And of course you, Carrie. It was just, super interesting. Very informative. And as a quick reminder to those that did ask questions, you could be in a chance to win a spot on Carrie's Brand Community Foundations course, which I'm going to be the easiest bit of information that you'll have to take your business, your brand, your community to the next level. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck with everything.
Thanks. Bye.